Hello, world. This would be the first episode of Controversy Corner. That's the channel I'm starting. It just sound, I don't know, man. This sound right for what I want to talk about. For real. In this first episode, we gonna talk about like slavery, just in general, and if it should still have an effect on African descended people from now, or just people of color in general. Um, Seeing as how it was so long ago, or some people say it was so long ago, but it really wasn't that long. And if you like think about how time is, but personally, of course, I'm of African descent to some extent. I feel well, it has to be to some extent. So I might be a little biased, but I usually try to take everything from everybody's perspective to decide on what I'll actually speak about. Basically, on this one, I'm just going to talk about something real small that I feel like still affects me today in some sense, and that's just like the history being taken away. That might not seem like a big deal because you live in the now, but usually what people say is like, if you don't know who you are, you don't know who you can become. So basically, like, if you don't know like what your ancestors believed and like whatever they used to get through life, that was taken from those slaves, and they were forced to believe in what they were told. And if they tried to speak against it, they would face consequences. Of course, we don't have that today. Like, you can believe in whatever you want to believe, but you still don't know. I still don't know like what my people are just in general, because like when slavery happened, they took your name, your last name, and you had the slave masters or whoever's last name from that point on. So, like, my last name is not the name of my people. It was the name of someone else's. Um, and your name means a lot, just in general. Usually, you can track your last name back to far back into your ancestry. Um, and seeing as how my name is someone else's name, it's not my actual name. I have no idea who my ancestors are, just in general. I know there were people of African descent just because of it was millions of people during the transatlantic slave trade that came from Africa and was sent to all these other places. Um, so I don't really know specifically what my people are. I just know I'm of African descent. Um, and I feel like that's a problem in general. I mean, you can say it doesn't matter, but when all the history you have is someone else's history, and all the history you know about your people is about being captive and then gaining freedom from captivity, only to still face like injustices in the social system. Like after slavery, like they had it said that it was illegal to own slaves, or it was illegal to be a slave unless you committed a crime. So basically, after that, that's when like the whole prison work system came into place. So it was a whole bunch of people being arrested for no reason, absolutely, uh, just caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. They can say you were committing a crime for something that you didn't, and you'll spend your whole life working again for nothing. Um, so that was just a way that they made that okay for slavery again in some sense. Um, and then after that, it was just a lot of other things that were systems that were built in to keep people in line, in a sense, to where a certain amount of people can make it, but not everybody's going to make it. Just the odds of a black person that came up in poverty or just a low education household making it out of that situation, the odds are really low. Just because of like that, what they say, you're a product of your environment. Usually whatever you're around, you become to adapt to. That's not everybody. I'm just saying in general, most people tend to acclimate to whatever environment they're in to make them feel more comfortable in that environment, because that's how everyone else is acting or behaving or thinking, in a sense. And basically from childhood we're taught someone else's history, and we don't really know our history. And that's I mean, it's not too many people that can say that. I mean, like, as far as like, if you think like Hispanic people and other people like that, like their last names, you can tell. Like whenever you have a person like even Asian people, you can tell that somebody is Asian because of their last name. You can't tell that I'm black because my last name is Robinson. Like that's just what I'm saying. And even like, I hate to say the word black too. I'm mad that I even said that, because I don't believe in black and white. It's just that I don't know what I am, so I can't really say what I am. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. That still gets me a little bit, because I get so accustomed to saying black and white and all this, and it's really not. Like, when you have a whole bunch of white people, or what we would consider white people, and one of them might be Irish, one of them might be Bosnian or whatever, you can usually tell by their name. Their last name will usually tell you where their family has come from. But it's just, so they're not white people. That's just the short term that we gave. It really go back to slavery. I don't really want to get, I guess I said I was going to talk about slavery. I don't want to get into that too much, but basically it was just a social construct to keep the people that were slaves in the country that weren't of color, and the people that were slaves in the country that were of color, to keep them separated so that they wouldn't rebel against the people that were in power. So they used black and white to say, like, you're white, you're not as bad off as this guy over here. Basically it would be like an African descended, an African slave versus like an Irish slave or something like that. So basically they would say that you're not as bad off as them, and they started making those people that were like Irish and stuff like that, they made them look over the African slaves to give them a sense of power, even though at the same, they were all like, they weren't really slaves, they were indentured servants at that point. They were all in the same boat, but they made the people that weren't of color feel in power and the people of color inferior to some extent. That's why I don't like saying black and white just in general, because it's deeper than black and white. But yeah, I don't want to go over 10 minutes on this video, so I'll just stop it, and I'll continue with another one later, I guess. Probably ask me some questions. I want to see some topics that you think are controversial, and I'll talk about it. I like to do research, and I like to hear different people's opinions on the matter. I know a lot of people say that it happened forever ago, so we shouldn't be bothered by it, but that's easy to say when you don't think. Like, in depth about things, and that's just how I am. So it's a little bit harder for me. But yeah, definitely comment and let me know what other topics you think are controversial.